Hey, it's Hannah. Thank you for joining me for another video. Today's video is going to be the mid-year freakout book tag. Hello, how is everybody doing today? So today's video is going to be the mid-year freakout book tag, which I had never heard of until last year, and I've only really been focusing on my channel this year, so I figured it would be fun to talk about all the books that I've read so far this year. It is a list of about 14 questions. I've seen a ton of people do it. I don't know where the tag started. I just saw a bunch of other people that I watch regularly do it, and so I thought it would be fun to do my own version of it. I will link all of the questions and the prompts in the description down below, so you will have all that information if you decide to do it. So I'm really excited to do this mid-year freakout with you guys today. So yeah, all of the prompts will be in the description down below in case you want to do this too. So I'm going to stop rambling and I'm just going to get into the prompts and the books because it is really hot up in here in my loft where I'm filming. It is so hot up here. So we're going to do this fast. Okay, the first prompt is the best book of 2021. So I'm doing this as just the books I read this year. A lot of these books were not published this year. So this is just all the books I've read this year. And out of all the books I've read this year, the best book I've read by far, my reasoning for this is, is Normal People by Sally Rooney. We're gonna scooch over so we could put Normal People here. This book made me have so many feelings. For a while, I could not decide if I loved this book or if I freaking hated it. And I think that's why it's one of my favorite books that I've read so far this year, because that is a testament to how great of an author Sally Rooney is. Because if she can get me to feel all these kinds of emotions about these characters, then that is a damn good author. Because I had so many feelings about Connell and Marianne. And if you don't know what Normal People is about, it's basically a slice of life story. There's not really like a big plot or a big thing. You're just kind of watching these two characters go through these years that the story is taking place and watching their relationship kind of grow and then fall apart and then grow again. You see them become friends. You see how much they love each other, how they drift apart. It's a really good slice of life story. And so there isn't really a huge plot. So if that's not something that's your favorite, then I wouldn't recommend it. But I loved this book. I still think about this book. I think about how infuriating this story is. I know why it's so polarizing, because you either love it or you hate it. And for a while I was like, no, I'm in the middle. Like, I don't mind it. And then I hated it. And then at the end, and I had some time to simmer down after it ended, I realized that I loved it. I loved it. So it's my best book that I've read so far this year. All right, the second prompt is the best sequel you read this year. And I've only read one sequel this year, so it's kind of a cop-out, and I didn't really like this book. This was not a good book for me, and that was Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline. I read Ready Player 1 back in December, and I loved Ready Player 1. I thought it was so much fun. I thought it was so well written, and I loved it. And I was so excited to read Ready Player 2, and it was just kind of a big womp womp. I don't know what else to say. It just wasn't, it felt like it was all the leftovers that Ready Player 1 couldn't include. Wade, our main character, sucks in Ready Player 2. He's the worst. The quest was like half-assed and like not really main part of the story. There was a lot of world building, and in a sequel you don't need that world building because you already got it in the first one. So I don't really know what that was about. And it just felt like this book was an afterthought, and it's literally just written so that it can become another movie. So I don't know. Yeah. Best sequel for 2021. The third prompt is a new release that you haven't read yet, but you want to, and that is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I want to read this so bad, but I do know that it's about one of the families from The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I have not read yet, so I need to read that first, and then I can read Malibu Rising, and I'm really excited to read it. I've heard mixed reviews, but I'm obsessed with that cover. Do you see that cover? The cover's awesome. And I don't own it yet. I want to own it. I haven't had a chance to go to my independent bookstore nearby to go get it. But yeah, I definitely want to read Malibu Rising. The fourth prompt is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year. And honestly, all of my anticipated releases have already come out. Malibu Rising was one of them. Survive the Night by Riley Sager was one of them. The fourth book in the Bromance Book Club series, I think, comes out in August or the end of July. I don't remember, but it's called Isn't It Bromantic? I still haven't read the third one of that, but those are my three most anticipated books of the year. Oh, and Act Your Age, Eve Brown, which I already own. So the only one else I could think of is The Heart Principle, which is the third book in the Kiss Quotient series. So if you have any new releases that are anticipated releases for the rest of this year, let me know in the comments below, because I don't really know any. And I love keeping up with new releases and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, let me know below what your most anticipated releases. The fifth prompt is your biggest disappointment. I hope I don't get hate for this one, but my biggest disappointment of this year was The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I really, really wanted to love this book. I am originally from the New York area. I'm from northern New Jersey. I'm from right outside of New York City. You could see the city skyline from where I lived. And I was so excited to read a book about New York City, but told in a totally different way. This book was about these people who live in the city who are the city, and they are the feelings and the inner workings of the city. And I thought that was such a cool concept, and there's so much you can do with that. And I just felt like the whole story was more about just them looking for other things and not, I don't know, it just wasn't what I wanted it to be, and it was kind of disappointing. And I'm also not a huge fantasy reader, and I found N.K. Jemisin's writing really, really hard for me to read, really, really hard for me to understand what was going on. Even though I think it helped that I knew New York City because I grew up in the area. But if you're not from the New York area, you don't know much about New York City, you're gonna feel and you're not really a big fantasy reader, you're probably gonna feel even more lost than how I felt. I don't know. I really, really wanted to love this, and I didn't. And I know N.K. Jemisin is an iconic fantasy writer, and I couldn't get into it, and I'm really sad about it. The next prompt is your biggest surprise. And for me, that was the book, hands down, Big Summer by Jennifer Weiner, because the summary was, I really just thought it was going to be like a contemporary about female friendships. And yes, those stories are important. We love stories about female friendships, especially adult female friendships, because we know how hard it is as adults to maintain friendships. It takes work. And I thought that's what this was going to be about, and rekindling an old friendship between women and having that. And it had 50% in it, took a totally different turn, and I was not, it totally caught me off guard. I still think about that book all the time because of how it just totally blindsided me, and I ended up really, really liking it at the end. So yeah, I read that book back in January, and I still think about it. So yeah, Big Summer by Jennifer Weiner is definitely the book that surprised me the most this year. Right, the next prompt is your favorite new author. So either new to you or a debut author. And this author is new to me. She is not new to the book publishing. I know, she's not a new author. That's what I'm trying to say. Words, get it together, girlfriend. And that is Fiona Davis. I read her book, The Lions of Fifth Avenue, this year, and I started reading The Chelsea Girls. She's got 5 books out, and they're all about New York City. And I'm sensing a theme here, but I loved The Lions of Fifth Avenue. It was about the New York Public Library. There was some mystery, there was some family drama in it, and it was a historical fiction, and I loved it. I loved it, and I was like, I need to read everything she's ever written now. It really kept me engaged the whole time. And I feel like with historical fiction, it can be either hit or miss. You know, sometimes historical fiction is really, really good, and you can get the good balance of the history and a fictional story and the characters. And other times it could just either feel too fantastic and too fictional, or too much history. And so I really felt like she did a really good job of also picking areas and time where people aren't really writing about. Like this Lions of Fifth Avenue was about, it was a dual timeline. So it was written in the perspective of like 1917, 1918, right in the middle of the women's suffrage movement in New York City. And then the other timeline was like 1993. Like it was totally different times. People usually, I feel like historical fiction is usually like, you know, set during a wartime or about people who were affected by a wartime or this huge historical event. And I feel like it was just taking place in those times. And the Chelsea Girls is in the 1950s and 60s, and about the entertainment industry and McCarthyism. And I feel like, again, that's not something, it really caught my eye because that's not something I've seen a lot of. Maybe it's just things I'm not seeing, but I was really intrigued. So Fiona Davis, I'm definitely reading everything by her as soon as I get the chance to. The next prompt is your newest fictional crush, and that is, okay, I've narrowed it down to two. You know I'm a romance girl. Either Michael from The Kiss Quotient or Josh from The Hating Game. I loved both of these guys. I thought Josh was like your typical like annoying, broody male in a romance, because he was, let's be real, he was. Like the stoic, like you don't need me. And Michael was kind of the same way, where it was like, oh, you know, I'm not good enough, you know, your typical broody male main character in a romance. But the way they just like grew throughout the story, it made me all warm and fuzzy. I just loved it. I loved them. I loved these books. Everybody read them. Okay? Good. The next prompt is your newest favorite character. And I'm gonna have to give it to Lucy from The Hating Game. She was so funny. And I just feel like The Hating Game in general, the banter that Josh and Lucy had back and forth was so entertaining. And it like actually had me laughing out loud, because they were just go the back and forth, the banter, the hate. It wasn't hate. Obviously, it's a romance. They fell in love. But it was just so funny to read. And I really related to Lucy in a lot of ways. And I just thought it was so fun. She was so funny. So I loved her. The next prompt is a book that made you cry. And this was a reread. I've read this book like twice, and I watched this movie a million times. But it is A Walk to Remember by Nicholas Sparks. This book makes me cry every time. It's a Nicholas Sparks book, so obviously it's gonna bring everybody to tears. But back in April, me and my friends went to this little sailing community in North Carolina for a couple days just to get away. And we were like, we really feel like we're in a Nicholas Sparks book. And on the drive back, we were like, well, let's just listen to one. Let's see if we need an audiobook to listen to on the way back. It's like, gonna be a few hours in the car. We need something to listen to. And we found A Walk to Remember on audiobook, and we listened to it the whole way home, and all three of us were like sobbing in the car on the way back. It was ridiculous, but it was a lot of fun to listen to it with my friends and all cry about it. But yeah, every time. The book makes you cry every time. Oh, and another book that made me cry was Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. Man, the way this book handles grief and like families, I don't want to say scandals, but like family issues and like all those conversations that families have when things get really hard. As someone who has experienced the loss of a parent, it like really, really made me feel some type of way. I felt what those girls were feeling when I felt it. And yeah, I think that's a really good book too. I really think everybody should read that. And I think that should be required reading in all high schools because of how it talks about grief and family dynamics and different cultures. I think it's so good. Okay, the next prompt is a book that made me happy, which I could think of a couple, but the ones that come to mind are The Hating Game and Una Out of Order. Oh my God. The Hating Game was just like so fun to read. It was so steamy. It was like the perfect romance book for me. Loved it. I loved everything about it. I gave it 5 stars. This is not news. But I also really loved Una Out of Order by Margarita Montemor. And I think that's her name. Oh, that's embarrassing if it's not her name. Anyway, I thought the idea of this book was really cool. And it really made me super interested in magical realism. Like, I don't know. There was something really good about that book where it was just a fun time reading it. I ended up reading most of it in like one day. Like I read from like page like 100 and I finished it in one day. And it was a good time. I had a good time reading it. And like I had a good time learning about Una and growing with Una as she read. It was just, it was a fun time. Next one is my favorite book to movie or TV adaptation that I've watched this year. And I've watched a couple. I watched Ready Player One back in January, which was awesome. I thought the book was better and the movie kind of disappointed me, but c'est la vie. I also have been watching Normal People because obviously the book was one of my favorites so far this year and I had to watch the show. The show is so good and it's so well done. And Sally Rooney's one of the writers for the show, so I had high expectations and so far it's meeting my expectations. I have a couple episodes left. It's so good. It's so good. And there's like certain things that you're getting in the book because like in the book you're getting their thoughts about certain things as they're happening. In the show you don't get that they're thoughts, but those same things are happening. So because I read the book, I'm like, oh, I know what he was thinking when he freaked out, because it's just like he just freaks out and then leaves. And you're like, and in the show, if you're just watching the show, you're like, wait, what? But I remember that part from the book and I know what he was thinking. And I think it just really adds to the whole like Normal People experience. It's such a good show. It's such a good book. Everybody read it, please. But I do recommend the audiobook because Sally Rooney does not use quotation marks and that annoys the crap out of me. So audiobook, 100%. Okay. Anyway, moving on. And then another movie I watched actually just last weekend was One for the Money because I read the book. I just finished the book a couple days before we watched the movie. And the movie was very entertaining. The book is like, it's dated. Let me tell you, it was written in 1994. You can tell. And the movie was done in like 2012, I think. But it was entertaining. It wasn't the best movie in the world, but it was definitely entertaining for what I needed it to be at the time. The next prompt is the most beautiful book you've gotten this year. And I thought of 2 for this one. I haven't read either of them yet, but I'm obsessed with them. And I wonder, they're on the shelf behind me. Hold on. Oh my God, they're right next to each other. Okay. These 2 books, these covers, I like think about all the time. The Hunting Wives, I don't know what it is about this cover that just, I'm drawn to it. The lipsticks and the little bullet casing, oh my God. The little shell casing, I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with this cover. The way the colors contrast, I think, is what's getting to me. I love this cover. This cover is amazing. So that's one of them. And then the other book that I'm obsessed with the cover, I saw this, actually just got this recently at Barnes & Noble. And I wasn't even really looking for anything. I just went in to go in and because I wanted to. And I saw this cover and I was like, whoa, that's an amazing cover. And it's The Siren by Catherine St. John. Do you see this cover? These bright colors, it's a beautiful cover. I'm obsessed with this cover. I'm obsessed with the story. I can't wait to read it. It's so good. Both of these. Just incredible covers. All right, and the last prompt is, what books do you need to read before the end of the year? And there are 3 books that I have to read before the end of this year. One of them I'm not going to tell you because it's for a video that I have planned. but I will tell you the other two. And one of them is Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, because I need to read that before I read Malibu Rising. And everybody talks about the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, how amazing it is. And I read Daisy Jones and the Six, so now I need to read Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I need to. And then the other one was Act Your Age, Eve Brown. I still haven't read it. I have it. Girlfriend is right here. I need to read her. I need to. And I'm so excited to read this. And I keep saying that, but I don't want the series to end because it's such a good series. But yeah, I will read this, the other book that I'm not going to tell you, and Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I will read all three of these before the end of the year. Mark my words. Mark my words. I will. Okay, and those are all the prompts for the mid-year freakout book tag. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking around with me. I hope I gave you some good recommendations. If you're interested, leave some recommendations for me in the comments below. If you did a mid-year freakout video, leave it in the comments below. I'd love to watch it. All of the prompts for this tag will be in my description. Feel free to do it. Again, I feel so bad. I don't know who started this. I don't know where this tag came from, but I do know that I saw a ton of people doing it, so thought I would join in on the fun. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you are doing okay and that you are having a fabulous day, and like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.